confusion, fear, doubt, and unbelief in my life, I've got to put some healthy boundaries between my heart and their unbelief. Because I want to be what Yahweh has called me to be. Notice, Yahweh's arrow will go forth as lightning. So, that lightning issue is spoke about in Matthew 24, notice. But stay there, don't leave this. The arrow is the lightning of the coming or the seeing or the parousia or the advent of the Master Yahweh. Notice, verse 14. And the Master Yahweh will blow the shofar. Wow, I love it. I love it. Well, you know, he will send one of his ambassadors because he's too holy. Call the Father. Call the Father. Call the Father. Call the Father. You know, have somebody blow the shofar, clean the toilet, wash the sink, clean the dick. No. Yahweh will blow the shofar. Well, that's a pretty good reason to blow the shofar. When Yeshua returns his arrow, the Father's not going to go, Yahoo, Yahoo.com, Yahoo.net, Yahoo. Sitting up there in heaven, sitting up there in heaven with a big Yahoo, with the internet on Yahoo. What's he gonna do? He's my Yahweh, he's my Yahweh, he's my man. If he can't do it, no one can. So what's Yahweh gonna do? He's gonna announce his arrow. He's going to announce the coming of the arrow. He will blow his shofar. Should I go into a Jewish bookstore and buy a shofar? Should I go into a Jewish bookstore and play a shofar? Buy a shofar? Yes, because Yahweh has one. Yahweh owns one. Let's read it again. The Master Yahweh will blow the shofar. Now, if you believe this is a metaphor, you have the right to be wrong. This is not metaphor. I believe there's a shofar that will announce the return of the arrow. Yahweh will be seen through the return of the arrow only when we're willing to be raised up in the bow and not apart from the bow. Amen. Well, Rabbi, I'll tell you why I'm coming to Miami Beach. I love studying Jewish stuff. I want to be Jewish. I want to be like this. You come to the wrong place. I'm sorry. I'll send you down to the road. Maybe I'm going to teach you how to be Jewish. I'm going to teach you how to be a bow that fits into Judah. Now you're talking. We want to learn how to fit into Judah, not to replace Judah. Ephraim has been so busy replacing Judah, theologically speaking, for 2,000 years that we haven't been raised up as sons of Zion. How can you be raised up in the bow when you're trying to get rid of the bow that's ready to fire you against those darts that come against you? Does any of this make sense? Or is this too high tech?
No, it makes sense. Understood.
But Yahweh has a shofar. Oh, that's high tech stuff, man. That's really high tech. Yahweh has a shofar. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Check this out. Notice. Watch this. I love it. I love it. Man, I love these scriptures.
Yes.
I love these scriptures.
Amen. Baruch Hashem.
I'm not talking about the rest of it. I'm talking about the scriptures.
Okay.
I mean, look at this. Yahweh will be seen. When his arrow goes forth. How? As lightning. The Master Yahweh will blow his own shofar. How many know Yahweh can afford a shofar? Yahweh will blow the shofar. You read 2 Thessalonians 2, says the same. 1 Thessalonians 4:16 says the same thing. Yahweh, the Master himself, will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel and the shofar of Yahweh. It doesn't say that the angel will sound the trumpet. That's the way we've always read it. Let's be honest. Jerry, let's be honest. Let's talk. When I first got saved, I always thought that the angel, that Yeshua would return with the sound of the shofar when the angel blows the shofar. Read 1 Thessalonians 4. It says, it'll be the shout of the angel, but the shofar of Elohim. Read it. There is no shofar of the angel. It's the shofar of Elohim. It's the voice of the archangel. It's the shout of the archangel. So the angels shout. But the children of Israel, like the Heavenly Father, we get to blow the shofar. Well, Rabbi, do I have to do the Jewish stuff? Nope, you can just stay separate from the bow. So we don't have to, we get to. Every time we blow the shofar, it's a faith proclamation, listen, it's a faith declaration, listen, it's a faith annunciation, listen, that we are anxiously expecting the return of Yahweh in the latter days, because Ephraim is no longer trying to destroy the bow, they're willing to safely abide in the bow, listen, and be raised up as a son of Zion.
Amen. Baruch
Baruch
Hashem.
Hashem Yahweh. No, but I'm not finished with you. Look at this.
Okay.
Look at the end of verse 14. Pardon me while I pour myself some refreshments. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Wow. Hey, Henry, look. He drinks. Yeah. Just like you. I drink. Just like you. Look at verse 14. Yahweh will be seen over them. His arrow shall go forth as lightning. And the Master Yahweh will blow his own shofar. And shall go with whirlwinds from the south. What does that mean? Listen. When he blows the shofar from the south, it means he's not coming from Tibet. He's not coming from Havana Pequeña. He's not coming from Shenandoah de Tautiatia. He's not coming from the Chrome Detention Center. Yeshua is returning from the south. What does that mean? The house of Yehuda, yes. The north are the arrows clearing the way of his coming, but his actual coming is from the south. That lightning in the sky is a physical sign to remind you who he is in the spirit and who's coming to redeem, restore, and regather both houses of Israel. How many enjoyed that message yesterday?
Oh, yes.
Darts and arrows? Darts and arrows? Okay, so this is the end of part 2. Darts and arrows, the end of part 2. Okay, but I'm just going to read the notes because I don't want to take up other time that we have that we're supposed to do these other things. Zechariah 9:14. Are we taping? Are we taping, Tehillah?
Yeah.
Zechariah 9:14. But big adults, before we get started with our Hanukkah festivities, I want you to look up the scriptures or you're not going to understand what I'm saying because I'm not going to do any teaching. I'm only going to do reading of the notes. Okay? We're on the same sheet? Yes? Good. Very good. And Yahweh will be seen over them, and his arrow will go forth as the lightning. And the Master Yahweh will blow the shofar and go with the whirlwinds from the south. Remember yesterday we said that when Yeshua returns, when the two houses come together, he will blow his own shofar. Remember we talked about that? He will not blow another shofar, but he will blow his own shofar. Okay? Would you please shake your head if you remember, because I know you were paying attention. Okay? 9:14. Zechariah 9:14. He will be seen or empower the sons of Zion in their struggle to reclaim their Hebraic heritage and their land. He will return to the earth when he sees both houses behave as the arrows in the bow of Judah against paganism and uncleanliness in both houses. When he sees us rise up by forsaking uncleanliness in both houses, what does the scripture say? Then Yahweh shall appear. Remember we talked about that yesterday? Yeshua will come alongside us. He will cover us in protection and power, returning as Yahweh's arrow. Remember the Father is the bow. Remember we talked about that, the Father being the bow and Yeshua being his arrow. Remember we discussed that? So Yeshua will return as his arrow going forth as lightning. Then we went to Matthew 24 and we read that the arrow of his supernatural power that exists in heaven, who is Yeshua, will be manifested on the earth through lightning. And we read yesterday, I believe it was in Matthew 24, I don't have the verse in front of me, that Yeshua's return is likened unto lightning, the metaphor of lightning. So the arrow of Yahweh, who's the arrow of Yahweh? Yeshua. Yeshua will be shot forth by Yahweh when he sees both houses rising up and forsaking paganism and all other unclean practices, and will be raised up as children of Sion. Amen? I don't have time to go over everything that we talked about yesterday. Yahweh will blow his own shofar. And why does the lightning shine from the east to the west and the north and the south? Because at the end of verse 14, Zechariah 9, we see that Yeshua will go forth as an arrow blowing his own shofar. Yahweh will be seen over them, and Yeshua will come as a whirlwind from the south. The arrow of Yahweh will come as a whirlwind from the south. What did we say yesterday? Why would it be the south? Because Yeshua is known as what? Yeshua is known as the king of the Yehudim, or the king of the Jews. So he comes from the southern kingdom of Yehuda. And we see in 1 Thessalonians 4, 16, 18, that the angel shouts, but Yeshua blows his own shofar and is his own arrow. And what Yahweh wants to do to us is make us arrows by making us Sion, taking us away from the unclean practices of paganism and the things of Greco-Roman culture. Today we don't even mention the C word. The C word is not even mentioned here. That's one of the ways we're being raised up as children of Sion and children of Zion. We know what day this is, but we don't even mention this day because Yahweh says, I can't fill the bow of Judah with the arrows of Ephraim if you're delving into those unclean practices. So today we don't want to wish anyone, a merry you-know-what, but rather if in the worst case scenario, we say Merry Hanukkah. And the reason we say Merry Hanukkah is we realize that Yeshua will not appear and return until we become arrows in the bow of Yahweh. Okay? So we see that in 1 Thessalonians 4, 16 through 18. Yeshua blows the shofar, sends himself into the earth, and returns. Verse 15. Yahweh's vow shall shield and defend them, meaning both houses that come together as the one new man. If you want to read about the one new man of Ephesians 2, you'll first find that reference in Zechariah 9:13, when the arrows are put in the bow, in order for Yahweh to form one new mighty man, a Zion, the men and women of Sion, to overcome the Greco-Roman culture that permeates our culture. Amen? Yahweh's vow will shield and defend them, verse 15. Yahweh will devour and subdue with sling stones. He will drink and make a noise as if with wine, and will be filled like bowls, like the corners of the altar, as I continue to read. Yahweh will fight in this battle between cultures to fill Israel with new wine. Okay, verse 15, look at verse 15. Zechariah 9:15. He says, Yahweh the arrow will appear to defend both houses and devour our enemies, but with sling stones, and will drink and make a noise as if with wine. The wine is the new wine of spiritual and military power, which can only be achieved when the two houses of Israel are one. Amen? That new wine of spiritual and military power, Hanukkah is all about being spiritual and militaristic all at the same time as we overcome our spiritual enemies, but we also overcome the Arab nations, the Muslim nations, and those who desire us ill. Amen? So the wine, when Yeshua said he will devour our enemies and we will drink, he will devour our enemies with sling stones, we will drink the new wine of military and spiritual power over all the heathen influences found in the nations, and make a noise as if with wine. And what do people who are drunk with physical wine do? They make all kinds of strange noises, right? Ooh, ah, ooh. And so we will be empowered to make strange, conquering, strange noises over the enemy as we're raised up in the latter day as the sons and the daughters of Sion. Now, and they will be filled like bowls, like the corners of the altar. So Yahweh will fill us with new wine, and we are the what? The bowls of his choosing. When we determine to become arrows in the bow, he fills us at his return and before his return with new wine as if poured into fresh bowls, fresh vessels, fit and made for the master's use. Very good. And we will make noise, the noise of victory, the noise of spiritual and military conquest as Yahweh destroys
all the Arabic Islamic nations around us spiritually as well as in the land of Israel. And the corners of the altar in the temple, the corners of the altar in the temple were sprinkled with blood to consecrate the altar by the high priest. How did the high priest consecrate the altar? The corners of the altar, he took his what? His finger, and he dipped it 7 times, and he purified the horns or the corners of the altar. When Yeshua returns and he sees both houses acting like they're supposed to act, and not celebrating Christmas, but celebrating and being raised up in the things of Zion, Yeshua will take, metaphorically speaking, he will take the 4 corners of the earth, represented by his sprinkled blood, representing all of Israel's scattered exiles. He will sprinkle them with his blood, enabling to return as the one new mighty man in Yahweh, drunk with power and authority. I like that. I look forward to that day. And the process has already begun now. That's why we're here. Ephraim and Judah, you're learning how to be an arrow in the bow so you can defeat all the darts, tick, 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 those little fiery darts of the enemy. Okay? Look at your children today. They're being raised up as arrows, not darts versus dart, because the Bible does not teach dualism. Dualism is one day dart A overcomes dart B, or one day dart B overcomes dart A. The Bible does not teach dualism, that there's 2 forces, one light, one darkness, and they're constantly fighting each other, and they're equal forces, and sometimes darkness wins, sometimes light wins. The Bible does not teach dualism. It teaches the superiority of the Son of Yahweh, the King of Kings, the blessed Redeemer, our Savior. So Yahweh's goal is when we act the way we're supposed to act to you, that when we do what we're supposed to do, Yahweh promises to make us bowls that are able to contain that new wine, that make us act completely different than the way we used to act, because we used to act as dart versus dart. One day good day, one day bad day. One day good hair day, one day bad hair day. One day we love Yeshua, one day we're confused if Yeshua is even Moshiach. And we don't know if we're coming or going. We don't know if Rabbi Moshe is preaching the truth. And we have to call up the psychic hotline to confirm if Rabbi Moshe is preaching the truth. That's what happens when you don't allow yourself to be raised up in the things of Zion and you're wandering to and fro, because the father of lies, Satan, he's the one that runs to and fro. He's the one that runs back and forth and doesn't have a clue. Amen. Rick was giving me the 3-minute sign. I said I wouldn't preach. I lied. So Yeshua will fill us like bowls, like corners of the altar. And if we go to another CD, Rivka, if we have to, please. We'll keep it under 5. We gotta go. I can't do this in 3 minutes. I'm sorry. Even if I read, I can't do this in 3 minutes. I mean, can you read the New York Times in 2 minutes? Can't even read the sports section in 2 minutes. The corners of the altar in the temple were sprinkled with the blood by the high priest. In like manner, Yeshua is returning to sprinkle the 4 corners of the earth where scattered Israel fills the nations with his blood, enabling them to become mighty men drunk with new wine. And then we have the Ruach HaKodesh saying, these men are not drunk as you suppose. It is but the 3rd hour of the day. This is that which was spoken by the prophet Yoel. In the latter days I will pour out my Ruach upon all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions, and even upon my handmaidens and my servants I will pour out of my Ruach, saith Yahweh of hosts. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So Yeshua is returning when he sees us willing to be raised up in the things of Zion. As we take a stand against the Greco-Roman practices around us and the Palestinian squatters in the Palestinian-occupied West Bank, and we are willing to walk as Zion, and we are willing to be arrows in the bow of Yehuda, even as Yeshua is the arrow coming from heaven. Zechariah 9:14, his arrow. Who's the Father's arrow? The Father's arrow is Yeshua. And the Father's arrow will go forth when he sees the arrows taking their rightful place in the bow of Yehuda. Amen. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Yahweh. Who else is there to Baruch Hashem? Amen. If we allow ourselves to be arrows now, if we allow ourselves to be arrows now, then we will be the bowls of his choosing, full of wine that will make us drunk with peace, righteousness, joy, and power in the Ruach HaKodesh, because that is Yahweh's will, to make us powerful to act completely different than a natural man would act. And that can only happen through the new wine, the Yayin Chadash. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Verse 16. And Yahweh, their Elohim, shall save them in that day, in that yom, as the flock of his people. For they will be as the stones of a keter, a crown, sparkling over his land. What does it mean to be like a keter, a crown, sparkling over his land? Those are the 12 tribes of Israel, being the crown, the authority over the entire land. As the Arab-Israeli conflict is put to an end, Yahweh says the Arab-Israeli conflict will not be put to an end until non-Jewish Israel, born-again Christians, are willing to leave those systems that have enslaved them and are willing to be arrows in the bow, because the bow is solid, the bow is firm, the bow is foundational, the bow is the eternality, the things that Judah has protected over the years, such as Hanukkah. There's not one word in the Bible about Christmas, and there are literally 4 references about Hanukkah, including Yeshua celebrating Hanukkah in John 10, 21 and 22. And we're going to read today 2 entire books, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, which are, by the way, they are in the Catholic Bible. Catholics consider this scripture, the 1st and 2nd Maccabees. In the Catholic Bible, we have the entire detailed account of Hanukkah. There's much more historically valid to Hanukkah than there is to that other thing. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Yahweh will save them in that day. What day? The day when he sees us being raised up in Sion. And then we will be the flock of his choosing. We will be not just that, but we will have the authority sparkling over the land of Israel. Both houses will be made into one flock of his own choosing, the one new man Paul speaks about in Ephesians chapter 2. 12 stones for the 12 tribes in that beautiful new crown. So Yeshua has given you new wine to be the arrows, just like the arrow of the Father. Who is the arrow of the Father? It is Mashiach Yeshua himself. Who is the bow? The bow is Abba Yahweh, and he bends his bow, and when he sees Ephraim and Judah acting in love and togetherness, Christians and Jews striving for the same Torah, the same faith, one baptism,